Okay, so good morning all. So before we get start the day one session, so anybody have any open questions, guys? So regarding demo session, any open questions? If you have any, please go ahead.
Am I audible? Hello?
Yes, I can.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, Venkat. Ullas here. Yeah, I just there's one request by
Okay.
end of the session, if possible, to share the notepad that you are using, so that could be a reference for us
Yeah,
later
sure,
on.
definitely. Yeah. Okay. So anybody have any other questions, guys?
Nothing from my side.
So just Venkat to one question here. So how do we perform deployment like from environment to environment, like local to test to prod? I mean the multiple stages. So through DevOps pipeline, right?
Correct. So we are covering both actually. So as I said, part of the demo session. The first usually I'll explain the local right on premises how to deploy it. So we have a software provided by the MuleSoft. So there is a the MuleSoft the deployment on premises. We have to download that one and then we have to set up a number local. So that is a one way. Other way, the Cloud Hub deployment, we have to sign up the account, 1 month trial account they will provide, right? Which is nothing but an AnyPoint platform. Okay, so there, once you logged in, there is a runtime manager. This is nothing but a Cloud Hub deployment. So there is a runtime manager. So using that runtime manager, so we can able to deploy it. So that the part of the session, so we can discuss. And then other way is, once you are familiar with that one, so I'll explain that the architecture of the DevOps pipeline as well. So how they will deploy, so end to end, right? So whenever you check in the code, so into Git or Bitbucket, right? So usually we are using some kind of these project repositories, right? Either a Git or a Bitbucket. So using that one, and then we'll try to check in the code. So whenever you try to check in the code, so these DevOps pipeline, right? So they will take the only non-production environments automatic deployment they will enable, but production so should not be. So they have to take it manually. So once you check in the code, so the Jenkins pipeline, right? So read the code and then they will try to compile it. Okay, so without any issues, they will take the build. Usually that build they kept into the JFrog. There is one more software actually they put into the JFrog for a backup purpose, right? Something gone wrong, so they will take care and then they will roll back it, right? Previous jars. So it depends on the your client agreement or client requirement. Last five jars they will store it actually part of the JFrog, right? So then once they will kept into that, once they will keep it into that the JFrog, right? So they will read that, they will deploy into our runtime manager. So as I said, the part of the demo, so there is a CLI commands, right? So the MuleSoft provides CLI commands for that. So using that CLI commands, they will try to deploy into the cloud actually. Either they restart it, either they'll deploy it. So all these things they'll manage via CLI commands. So while deploying the CLI using CLI commands, they have to pass that how many vehicles, how many workers, and then the what zone you are going to deploy it, because the multiple zones are available. Right, all these the properties also, so the expected properties also, the version of the runtime manager, all these things they will pass via CLI command and they will try to runtime deploy into the runtime manager. Okay, so this structure I will explain, but these two things we cover it. So the part of our sessions, how to deploy it, the manual deployment, even the cloud also there is automatic deployment from AnyPoint Studio, so that will also will cover. Okay, is it clear?
Yes, Venkat. Thank you.
We'll cover all these things, guys. There is a runtime fabric also there, but it's kind of a hybrid, the mix and match of the both the Cloud Hub environment, Cloud Hub deployment, as well as on premises. But that we can't able to do it, guys. That setup is required. So we'll try to explain the architecture of that one as well, how to do that one. Okay. So anybody have any other questions, guys?
So one more question from me.
Yeah.
So how will be the database side in the MuleSoft? Because as I'm from a .NET background, so we'll be using SQL Server, Oracle, and other things. So how we are managing here? So because when we build an API, so again it will be fetch data from the database. So
correct. So the part of our session, I'm going to explain two databases. So one is the MySQL. So we have the community edition, the MySQL, right? So I'll cover that one. So there is one more thing I'm going to cover it, the PostgreSQL. Right. So if you guys are familiar with any other database, so I'll show you clearly. So in my mission, if I want to install anything, I have to raise an IT request as well one more time. So if I cover these two things, right? One is the MySQL is a straightforward, meaning so the part of the MuleSoft they have a drop down in a DB connector. So MySQL, Oracle, SQL connection, I mean SQL Server, Derby. So these are straightforward. You can have a drop down, just choose it, and then put that the required fields. Then PostgreSQL, the MongoDB, right, from other any other database, right? So it's not as straightforward. Actually, we have to provide the connection string. Okay, so we have a generic connection option. We'll choose the generic connection so that we can establish the connection using generic connection. So that two things I'm going to explain. One is straightforward. Another one is which is not there in the dropdown, the DB connector. So that will go for a generic connection. Similar way, in future when you're working with a client, so which is not available in the dropdown of the DB connector, right? So obviously you should go for a generic connection. So that I'll cover here actually how to establish a generic connection. Okay. So in your machine, any other databases available, you can go ahead and implement it. So I'll assist you accordingly if you're stuck anywhere else. Okay.
okay, Venkat. We are also deploying this using Bitbucket and Git, right? The scripts, database scripts.
So if you're aware about the Jenkins script, yes.
Okay.
Okay. So actually, I mean, there is one more option, the Jenkins script, right? We can implement some kind of a Slack integration also. Whenever you would just trigger the Slack command, so that will call that your Jenkins job. So the Jenkins job will take it to deployment. So that way also we can do it. Okay, let's see. Any other questions, guys?
That's it from me, Venkat. Thank you.
Okay, great. So let's get started today's session. If no questions. Okay, so this is a part of the day one session. So let's start environment setup, guys. So how to do the environment setup. So what are the software requirements, and then what are the hardware requirements? All these things I'll explain it clearly, so that so you guys can ready with a setup. Okay, so let's do the first software requirements. What are the software requirements for this? So we are going to discuss about the latest version only, guys. The first we have to the 1.8 Java is required, guys. Okay. So in your machine, if it's already there, then well and good. If not, so please download that the Java 1.8 and then so set up install in your machine. I'll just quickly show you that one, how to Java 1.8 the download. If somebody is not aware about it, then we can download that one. So for this, so we need the Oracle account, guys. It's a dummy account we need for that, right? So try to click on that whatever the operating system you guys are using, right? So appropriate the version you have to download it. Here you can see that one, right? So you have to accept the terms and agreements. Okay, so this is the location. So here you can see it is asking the login, right? So just create a dummy account. If you have already, just provide that the details. I'm just providing my details. Please start yourself from your side as well. If you're not, the Java is not available. Okay, here you can see that one. So once you provide that the username and password, if it is not there, just try to create an account. Okay, so that's the way I'm just passing. So once you download that one, after installing, it's very simple thing. So click the next, you have to click that one. So once you get installed it, what needs to be done? So here you can see 2 folders get generated. Under one pointed, there are several subversions. You can install any one. Okay, so JDK 1.80 underscore 281, JRE 1.80 underscore 281. Okay, so these 2 folders required, guys. So apart from that, we need to set up class path as well. So once we set up the class path, so I think few of them are already aware about this one. So once you set up the class path, so anywhere else we can execute your Java program usually, right? So here as well. So once you set up that one, so whatever that you are going to execute the mule flow, right? So which is required the Java path, guys, so that you can execute it. As I said, whatever the components you are going to use in the MuleSoft, right? So all the components built by using Java technology, okay, Java code, so that there is a Java class path is required to compile that the entire whatever you are going to create a flow, right? So the Java is mandatory. That too, the before going to set up any points, first you have to set up the Java. Okay, so once you set up the Java, once you install the Java, so you can see the 2 folders, right? If you have the admin permission, okay, so once you have a admin permissions, right? So go to your environment variables and set up that the class path. Okay, so there is a system advanced settings, right? So go there and then you can see it here. I'll just quickly show it. Most of them is aware about it, but I'm just quickly show you that part. So 2 things we have to do it, guys. One is so go to your this PC. This you can see it here. Most of them are using Windows 10 nowadays. Under that, there is the system properties. You can just search for that environment, the variables. You can see it here. And then once you click that, there is an environment variable here. So there is one more populated here. So you can see it here. So the Java underscore home. So you have to show that path, the root directory of your JDK. The first step. I'll just take it and put into the notes. So once you done that the Java class path, you can go ahead and in command prompt, right? You can execute Java version. It will show the version clearly. So if not something gone wrong with that the class path setup, you have to go and relook into it. Right. First one, you have to set up the Java underscore home. Right. Whatever the version you are using, just show that one. The second thing is so how to here is a new window. Actually, if you just click it new, so you can put the variable name and variable value. And one more thing here, 2 kind of variables you can see. One is user variables and the one is system variables. Okay, so if you set up the class path in system variables only for your user, it will work. Actually, in your laptop might be the several users will be there, the multiple users, right? If you set up that only the user variables, it will work for only your user. If you set up system variable, so how many number of users can access the entire Java actually. Okay, so the next thing is path. So here you can see path. So once you turn the Java underscore home, so here is the path. So here is a new button if you want to set up newly, right? So here is the Java underscore home /bin, right? Percentile Java underscore home percentile /bin. So that is the second parameter. I'm just closing that one. So putting here. Okay, and there is a part of the path. So once you've done that one, so go to your command prompt, cmd, search for Java hyphen version. You can see the Java version, whatever the version you installed. Okay, you can search for Java as well. It will show some information like this, Java C. Right, so if you see all this information, so that means your class path is done. Okay, for example, it will display something like this, Java C or Java is not recognized in internal external command. That means something wrong in your the class path setting, so you have to go and relook into it. Okay, so the Java, the first installation is Java, that is Java is done. Okay, so let's go to next thing. So Anypoint Studio, guys, as I said, any technology, if you want to write a code, we need IDE, right? Here we are going to use the IDE called Anypoint Studio. So go to your the browser, search for that Anypoint Studio, download. Okay, so here you can see that there are two versions you can download straightforward. Okay, so but based on the client requirement, so you have to download appropriate version, guys. So there are two ways to download it. Actually, I'm trying to download from the online itself. So but usually the preferable way to download is, so once you get a client, right, so they will share that username and password. So there is a the website called support.mulesoft.com. Okay, so here the complete whatever the software still now the active, right, all the softwares they are maintaining into this particular support.mulesoft.com. Okay, under resources, once you logged in, there is a login here. So this login using Anypoint Studio, Anypoint platform, right? There is Anypoint platform login, right? That is provided by the client, genuine one. So once you logged in, so here you can see the number of softwares under resources. There is an option called resources. So once you logged in, you can able to download from there. But right now I'm trying to download from the online itself. Okay, so this is also valid 30 days, guys, no issues. So it will give the, I mean, it will execute properly without issues till 30 days, but it's not responsible for MuleSoft, guys, any issues, anything wrong. Okay, so here you can see there are two versions, straightforward, Anypoint Studio 7, and then the Mule 4, right, Mule Runtime Server 4. If you want to download older version, right, so you can see previous version, download Anypoint Studio 6.6 and then Mule 3.9. So what is this two versions here? So currently the latest version of the Anypoint Studio is 7.x. It's around 7.9, guys, right? So the Mule runtime server is 4.3.0. We can call it as a 4.x. Okay. So when you're trying to download it, so here you can see that Windows, whatever the operating system you're going to use it. So you have to choose that accordingly. So I'm currently using Windows. I'm just choosing Windows as an option. So you have to accept the terms and agreements and then click that one. If you want to read the terms and agreements, click here and then you can go through it. So just click it here. So when you choose this one, so it will download the brand new version of the Anypoint Studio along with the runtime server, right? I'm just the canceling this one. I'll show you that once it download how it is look like and all. Okay. So here earlier, I mean before the 4.x introduced, right? So there is the only one Anypoint Studio, right? Only one version, whatever the latest version. Accordingly, we can add that the runtime server. So what is these two differences? I mean, what is meant by runtime server? What is meant by Anypoint Studio? So Anypoint Studio, currently I'm just showing my Anypoint Studio. So once you install, right, you can see it here. Once you configure it, so you can see the version here under help, the Anypoint Studio 7.8.0, right? So runtime server. So here the runtime server, when you're trying to create a Mule project, you can see that runtime servers 4.3.0, 4.2.0, 4.1.2. So these are our runtime versions. So these are, this is nothing but a Anypoint Studio version. So in earlier, the only Anypoint Studio version is the latest, and then we can add it number of the runtime servers. For example, client is still working on the 3.x, right? We can just add it here. But nowadays it's not like that. The only specific the version of the Anypoint Studio support only specific version of the runtime server. They segregate it clearly. For example, here we are using a 7.x as Anypoint Studio, and then it will support all the 4.x runtime servers. Okay. So, but whereas if you see the older version, right, in online itself, you can see the older version, right, 6.x Anypoint Studio, it will support the 3.x runtime server. So accordingly, we have to choose it based on the client, the project, right? For example, if you're working on a migration project, you might need older version also for comparison, right? So accordingly, we have to download it. So right now you can go ahead and the download latest version, right? Once you download, it will you can see the latest version of that one. Let me just so here you can see once you download it, so we'll get a the zip content. Here you can see that Anypoint Studio 7.90, the Windows 64 zip. Okay, what needs to be done next step? So we have to install. There is a software called 7zip, guys. Try to install that one. It won't take the more than 2 minutes. Just quickly download that one. Install 7zip software. Okay. Once you install 7zip software, you can see on your right click there is a 7zip option will come. So why I'm preferring 7zip software? When you're trying to unzip this one, right? When you're trying to unrar, unzip this one, right? You should not miss any class actually. If you are facing any issue while the unzip, right? So you might face somewhere else some issue. Either it's a debug issue, whether it's a when you're trying to add any dependency, right? You might not download properly, right? So that's the reason I'm suggesting. Even the MuleSoft are suggesting. So just use that 7zip software, and then you can see that option in the right click once you install. So clearly use the extract to Anypoint Studio. Okay. So once you extract to Anypoint Studio 7.9.0, just rename it, guys. Nowadays, it's not accepting Windows 10 actually this much big name. Just put it as a simply Anypoint Studio. Okay. So make sure you can see clearly error, even though if you try to keep it entire thing and then try to start it, it will clearly throw an error actually because of length issue. Okay. So just make it Anypoint Studio, rename it, and then you can see that Anypoint Studio exe. Okay. So then start this one, Anypoint Studio exe. Here I'm not installing it. I'm just configured it. So once I download it, just unzip it and then started it. So you can see, keep it into the appropriate location, guys. Don't keep it into your the user, whatever the user you are using, right? Usually under the C program files, you can see the user, right? In your user. Under C drive, you can see the users, right? So don't keep anything inside your user actually. So why I'm saying that one, why I'm trying to highlight that one. So you might face some kind of a permission issues. You can see that 403 issues. Sorry for that. You can see that 403 issues, right? In future, for example, you're going to download some required dependency, right? You're going to work with a database. You're going to work with some kind of a queuing mechanism. So we need some dependencies, right? You have to download the dependencies, meaning you're just going to keep that into the POM. The POM will take it to download it. So if you don't have access proper the privileges, right? So you can see that 403. So instead of keeping into your user, put into that top of the, inside the C drive, or else if you have any other drives, you can just store there. Okay, so otherwise you might face that issues. So once you keep that one surface, just try to start this one. So any point exe, any point studio exe, and then you can see this workspace. It will ask actually whenever I will start it. You can see that it is asking workspace, right? What is this workspace here? So even Eclipse also it will ask the workspace. So this workspace is nothing but, so wherever you're going to keep the programs, right? So it will ask the location. So where you're going to create all the projects, right? So you can store into some workspace, some directory, right? Just create a folder and then show that the directory, right? That is nothing but a workspace. You can see that option as well. So what are all your recent workspaces also? If you want to switch the workspace, accordingly we can switch it. There is an option in the workspace itself, in the file. I mean, in the any point studio itself, you can see that option. If you want to switch it, accordingly you can switch it. So from workspace to another workspace, you can switch it. Okay, so which is nothing but a directory. So once you click that, it will ask the directory, show the directory name. Okay, so once you done that part, so without any issues, you can just see that the any point studio, right? So get started here. You might see that empty projects, right? So I have the multiple projects I created here. You can see the project, but in our case, you can see the fresh, I mean, without any the projects, right? You can see that the package explorer has some default information, how to export a project, how to create a project, all these options you can see. Okay, so this Anypoint Studio is nothing but a the Eclipse customization, guys, right? So here, what MuleSoft guys done, so they took a basic portion of the Eclipse, right? On top of this, on top of that, they customized it actually how they want. If you see compared to that the Eclipse, right? So whatever the if you are familiar with the Eclipse, right, all the shortcuts, whatever you are using here, similar kind of shortcuts, right? You can see that all the menus look like Eclipse. Apart from that, you can see they customized it. So here you can see the right side top, there is a Mule debug mode, there is a Mule design mode, there is the API design, and then you can see the Java mode as well, right? And then apart from that, you can see the bottom, even here in the Eclipse as well, you can see that similar kind of console, right? So you can switch it accordingly, and then using this any points, you can create a Java projects as well, right? It will support to create a Java project as well. If you want to create any Java project, it will support to create Java project. So apart from that Mule project, it will you can create a Mule domain project as well. We'll see what is meant by domain project and all. Okay, so that is the Anypoint Studio setup. So anybody have any questions? So there is a second one. The first one is Java installation.
So Venkat, one question here.
Yeah.
Suppose when we are using a trial version, so when it expire after 30 days, so then if we want to use again the trial version, because some of the connectors debug mode won't work, right? So in that case, if you want to reinstall it again, then will you be able to use the previous integration which we developed in the older
Yeah, you can just use that workspace, whatever the
workspace, right?
workspace. Yes, you can just reload it.
Okay, so when we reinstall it, we can give another workspace, but then the older workspace we can use, right?
Yes, yes, you can use that older workspace. You can just show that workspace, whatever the workspace you have already. Just show that the projects get loaded automatically.
Okay.
Okay. So apart from that, what else software is required, right? So we need the Postman client as well, guys. If you are already familiar with any other the client API tool, right? So for example, Postman, there is advanced REST clients ARC, right? And then you can use SOAP UI as well. For REST also you can test it actually. What is the purpose here actually? What is this the API tools? Whatever the familiar, if you guys already, you can use that API tool. Else The most of the time Postman, the client prefer, guys. As I said, when you're trying to work with the middleware, right? So we are working purely middleware work here. So we have to test our application because other vendors or other consumers not yet ready. So here is the MuleSoft. And then so our target system. I'm just putting like a Salesforce here, right? So you done only your work. Eventually, all these the end-to-end system should ready, right? For example, these guys not yet ready, right? So then you have to test only your endpoints, your API. You have to test it. So that's the reason you have to use some API tool, and then whatever the endpoint you are going to publish it, right? So that endpoint you have to keep it into the Postman client, and then you have to test it. So once it is everything is working in the Postman client, so then so you can share that on the YAML console accordingly. There are two things here actually. So whatever you are testing the YAML console, so same thing you can test into the Postman client as well. So usually once you're done, so you'll provide the YAML console to our clients. They can look into it and then they can hit the request. But most of them are they are familiar with the Postman client, right? So they can test it via Postman client as well. Even our QA as well, you can use they can use the Postman client. They can pass that the whatever that headers required, whatever the parameters required. Right? They can try to hit the request and then they can so get the response back. Right? Until E2E system, meaning end-to-end ready, so you can use that any API tool and then test our endpoints. So that's the reason. So we need a software called the Postman client or advanced REST client. You can use SOAP UI. You can test not only SOAP request, actually you can test the REST API calls as well. So how to set up this one? So go to your browser. So here you can see, just search for the Postman client for Postman client plugin for the Chrome. Okay, here you can see that option. You can just add into your Chrome. Okay, so here you can see there is an option called add to Chrome. You can do this one, or else we have a separate option called desktop. You can download for desktop the Postman client as well. You can just download it. Once you download it, just open this Postman client. If it is a desktop app, you can see it here. Or else, if you done that adding to the Chrome, so there is a launch option will come. If it is already there, you can see that launch option. I'm just adding now. Right here, you can see that. So whatever the apps you have, right, the part of your Chrome, you can see that option. Once you open, you can see it here. The list of already existing APIs or already existing collection you added, it will show you. Or else, usually just click that the plus button, and then you can see that whatever the option, whatever the endpoint method type, right, you can choose that one, and then accordingly we can try to hit the request, right? So that way, even our QA as well, they will try to hit that whatever the new endpoints you implemented. Either it's a, for example, either it's a create order, update order, delete order, right? So they will try to hit the request and then they will test it. So once that the other vendor or whoever the consumer is ready, right? So they can test it end to end. So request usually it should come from the client, and then MuleSoft should receive it. Whatever the implementation is done, the part of the business logic, so it will get executed and it will go to the Salesforce. So eventually order should available in the Salesforce, and that same order we should respond back to the client. Okay, so we have to add that this Chrome plugin, or else you can install that the separate desktop app. Okay, so that is another thing. So going forward, we are going to work with some kind of a queuing mechanism, as I said, part of the demo, right? So we are going to discuss two queuing mechanisms. There's two are open sources in the market. One is ActiveMQ, another one is RabbitMQ. Okay, so these servers also you have to set up it, right? So just Google it. It's very simple. It's a configurable again. Just search for the ActiveMQ. So it's a product of Apache. Here you can see that. So just download it and the put into certain location, and then there is a server. You can start it. Actually, it's a batch file. Is that you can just start that one, right? So you can see that with the port number of 8161. So that is available, right? So once you start it, I will show you that how to add the queues, how to add the topics, right? How to integrate with the via MuleSoft, right? I'll show that one clearly. So both of them are open source in the market. You just download it and then configure it. It's not installable actually. Just put into some location, and then whatever the batch file, you can just start it. Okay. So right now, so these are the minimum software is required. You can start your flows implementation. Okay. So in future, so we need the few more softwares required. I'll update the whenever required, right? So based on the topic, so I'll update accordingly, right? And one more thing, actually, there is the Maven, Apache Maven. Usually nowadays, this Maven by default will come part of your Anypoint Studio, right? If you go to the Windows Preferences, search for the Maven here, right? You can see that inbuilt Maven. Okay, use embedded Maven installation, right? You can see that Maven 3.6.3, so which is the latest one, right? For example, if you want to show, if you want to prefer, you have to take care of that Maven, right? So what needs to be done? You have to uncheck this one. You have to show your location actually where you set up that one, right? So I just click it, whatever that the version inbuilt, right? So it will utilize accordingly, right? If you want to set up it, you have to download it, and then you have to show the path. So wherever you install that the Maven, right? So you have to show the path. So that is also Apache product only, guys. Just search for that whatever the Maven. You can see it here. Just download accordingly. 3.8.1 is the latest. You can just download it. So just download that the zip content. So just unzip it, put into some location of your the C drive or whatever the drives, right? So just put into there, and then you can override it actually. But so nowadays, whatever the version is coming by the inbuilt, right, through Anypoint Studio, you can use that one. You don't need to the setup externally, right? So how this Maven will work? So if you go and look into that, once you create a project, right? So if you see any project, I'm just showing the example. So whatever the dependencies here, the part of the POM, so you can see the dependencies. Don't get confused. So all these things I'll show you once again. The part of the POM.xml explanation and all. I'm just showing that what the uses of POM here, what the uses of Maven here. So here you can see the dependencies, right? Under dependencies, I can see only 3 dependencies here, right? Based on your requirement, based on your the logic, right? So you're going to add few more dependencies. So that is taken care by the download taken care by your Maven. For example, whenever, for example, I just want to work with a the database, right? You have to add that new dependency here, right? From where we'll get in that one. So there is a Maven website, Maven Repository. Okay. So from here you can get it. Here you can see that the snippet. Take this one and then put into form Maven mini form.xml. Okay. So whenever you are keeping, once you save it, right, it's automatically downloaded. Here you can see the right side corner, it's getting downloaded. Okay. So where it will get downloaded? So go to your the users, wherever you use users location, and your user, right? There is a m2.m2 folder, right? So here is the repository. Here you can say that whatever the dependencies get downloaded, right? Here you can see that one, right? Whatever the version, you can see the number of versions I can see, right? These are the dependencies. So the Maven will take care the first time only from online. I will try to download it. But second time onwards, if you're using same the dependency, it should not read from the online actually. So it will read from the local, even though once you are deploying into the cloud, right? First time it will try to download it. Second time onwards, it will try to use existing one, right? That way, even whenever you're trying to deploy into the cloud, right, it will take care to download it first time, and then accordingly it will read it. So you don't need to download it manually. But without Maven, so nowadays in 4.x, right, everything it's a by default Mavenized project, meaning the pom.xml should be there. But before that, in 3.x, right, so it's there is an option. You want the Mavenized project or without Mavenized project. If you go for a without Mavenized project, so whatever the dependency you are keeping here, sorry. So whatever the dependency you are going to keep it here, so you have to download manually. So put into some lib folder part of your project, part of your the application, and then you have to add the dependency, and then you have to execute it accordingly. The problem is whenever you're trying to deploy it, all the dependencies also it will go via the part of your application, part of your jar file, right? Part of your zip file, whatever the deployable archivable file, right? It will go the part of that one, so that your the deployable archive file as well, the heavy size, right? If you go for a Mavenized, so you don't need to keep any dependencies, right? So it will take you to download it. So you just add that the POM, so that all the dependencies put into that appropriate folder, and then it will utilize it accordingly. Okay, so that is the use of Maven. So anybody have any question on this?
Venkat, just I'm not clear about this Maven concept. So we are keeping dependencies,
Correct.
right?
For
So
example,
those are just for a reference, or it will auto download when we deploy
auto
the
download.
versions. Auto download, and it will. I mean, yeah, it will auto download when we deploy, right?
Correct.
Okay.
So even the first time, as I said, right? So when you're trying to build with the Jenkins, right? The compilation, it will get auto download there as well. So based on the pom.xml, right? So it will get auto download. It will compile it. So once we compile it, so we'll get a jar file. The jar file will take care and put into the runtime manager. Okay.
So it will reduce the manual effort of downloading the files, right?
Exactly.
Okay.
So previously, as I said, there is a non-Mavenized projects, right? Once you create a non-Mavenized project, so this particular dependency, you should put the class path of your application, right? Until unless whatever that the dot class files, right? We can't load it, right? You can see the class not found exception. You can see, right? That means so something dependency was missing. There's usually the part of the certification question of the first question, actually this one. You can when you will see that class not found exception. So it might be one dependency or multiple dependencies get missed. So you can see that the class not found exception. That means something not loaded in your project, right? For example, so if you are using a non-Mavenized project, so as I said, you have to create the lib folder here, the part of your project, and then you have to download it. For example, here you can see the download option as well, right? You have to download it, and then manually you have to keep it into the one by one dependency, the part of your lib, right? And that too, the class path of your project, so that it can able to load it, whatever the dot class files, whatever the class files required, whatever the drivers. For example, in case of the DB connection, right? We need some drivers, right? So the driver should be load the part of your project, part of your class path of your project, so that it can able to recognize it and then able to establish the connection, right? So that part, so you don't need to do all these external things, right? So that can put into the class path, download it. So you can avoid that all these things if you're using a Maven. Yes, Maven will take care to download that one. Only the thing we have to do is we have to get that appropriate the Maven configuration, this one particularly that particular dependency. So it will available whatever the dependency, right? So in Maven repository.com it will be available. So then you can just get it from here and then put into in your the POM, right? Sometimes there are two places you can add it, actually, not only POM. So in connector itself, you have a the feasibility connector itself, you have a placeholder. just put it there, automatically it will reflect into POM as well. So we'll see that soon, the part of every sessions. Okay.
So Venkat, just we can keep here only like MuleSoft specific plugins, or we can keep additional softwares also, suppose SOAP UI.
So PA, you are saying the Anypoint Studio plugin?
Yeah.
No, actually we have to install separately.
Okay.
There is a SOAP software separately.
Yeah.
The advanced REST client also separately. The Postman client you can separately install, or else you can use the Postman, Chrome plugin. Even ARC also the Mozilla plugin is there. Actually, you can add into the Mozilla plugin. But coming to SOAP also we have a trial versions, the 15 days trial versions. You can download it and we can use it accordingly.
So actually, we don't have any dependency on the SOAP UI and Postman, so hence
yeah,
they are not keeping, or it won't work in that way.
I'm not clear actually what you're talking about dependency.
So we are not having any dependency as a part of MuleSoft on the SOAP UI or Postman.
Yeah, there is no dependency.
Okay.
Yeah. See, the thing is, until unless your client is ready, so you have to test your either it's a RAML console or either it's a the Postman client. Sometimes the part of the why I'm preferring this one, the Postman client or any other API tool. So sometimes the properly response. For example, you are getting a failure response 400 or 401 or the 4xx, right? It will not show properly sometimes in the RAML console. There is a the expected behavior in the RAML. Okay, so the latest the version, some issue is there. Still, people are working on that one. So if it is a Postman client, right, it will show clearly what is the reason it is. Why 401 is coming? Why 4xx is coming? What is a bad request, right? You can see that only status code here, but not a response. That's the reason I'm suggesting use that any other API tool to see the response as well. Okay. Is that clear?
Yeah.
I have a few questions here. No.
Yeah, your voice is feeble. Can you speak a bit loud, please?
Am I loud enough now?
Yeah.
The first point, what I understand is this Maven helps us to set up the environment that is required for us on the MuleSoft development. Okay, so this Postman UI and SOAP UI and all and additional tools that we are using it for the testing purpose.
Correct.
Am I correct?
Correct. That's correct.
Second point, the dependency that I'm right now, I should have two questions. The first one, the current version of my MuleSoft, what is the relative supported version that I'm actually getting it from the this in the pom.xml. So how will I get to know which version is supporting to my current version of MuleSoft?
So by default, you'll get a 4.3.0 only. Okay.
Not the Mule server. Sorry, Venkat, I quoted it.
POM version, no?
So
POM
now we
version
added the DB. Yeah, no, not POM version. We added the strings, the required tags for the DB, MySQL DB. Correct?
Okay.
So that I believe there is a tag for the version that is being mentioned. That is for DB. Yeah. Okay. 1.4.1. So how I get to know my current version of MuleSoft is compatible with this version of DB?
You can see that release notes. There is a release notes for every version. I'll show you that location.
Can you please scroll down to MySQL tags? Yeah, here 8.0.25. Yeah, so I wanted to know the okay. So this we should get it from the release notes, is it? Because I understand I can't simply download any version that I want.
No, you can see there are two places it will show you actually. If it is any upgraded version, right, when you're trying to drag and drop that the DB connector, right? So here you can see that the version get populated actually. So for me, it's not getting updated, meaning there is no update actually. I already updated that the version. Okay. So it will show you that drop down here on the connector itself whenever you are trying to drag and drop it, right? If it is any update version, it will show you in the drop down, so that accordingly you'll choose it. That is a one way. Other way is in release notes, right? Part of the MuleSoft release notes. So it will show you clearly what is the supported version of that one. Okay, I'll show you that one.
Okay. Yeah, and you answered my next question also. So if there is an upgrade from this third party, then it will start populating on the screen now. So that will
Exactly.
give me a
It will
trigger
pop.
where I can go and update my Maven.
Mm.
Correct. Okay.
It
Okay.
will
Thanks.
pop. No problem. So anybody have any other question, guys? So that's all for today. I have one more class. So if you don't have anything, we'll wind up this session today. I'll share the recording, guys. Just ping me in WhatsApp. Whoever joined today, I saw that new people as well. Just ping me in my WhatsApp number. I'll share that recording, today's one. Then we'll continue tomorrow hardware requirements. Along with, we'll try to play the flow itself, guys. Directly we'll see the hello world flow, and then we'll try to execute it, right? How to debug it. So all these things, so that you guys try to familiar with any point studio along with the flow creation. Okay, so that's all for today. If we don't have anything, we'll wind up. So thanks for joining, guys. We'll meet tomorrow, same meeting URL and same time.
Thank you.
Thank you, Venkat.
Thank you.